Hello everyone. This time we'll be talking about some ship layouts, and here, let me go ahead and show you some of the stuff I made. So far it's these, and but before I tell you how I made them or my thought process into making them, I had to kind of categorize the ship layouts by faction, or rather the group that the ship is going to copy, because when you have the group of the ship, you're able to determine what their purpose is or how the ship will be structured, kind of the identity of the ship that makes it different from the others, like a unique selling point. So far I've only made one. It's kind of, I would call it the stolen ship, because this kind of the lore is that the player stole a ship from the original faction, which is kind of like the Brotherhood of Steel. And yeah, I kind of worked on that first. So yeah, my thought process is that, okay, create the factions so that we know what each faction would do. So the point of the player faction is kind of like they're a balanced kind of ship style, which affects the play style, and they'll have kind of a symmetrical design because it's taken from like a military kind of design of the ship, pretty organized. And yeah, so let me show you the small one first. So how I designed this is that, okay, so what does a ship need? The ship needs, and what's always essential, is the reactor battery, or the battery, and the cockpit. Those are the two most essential things that every ship in this game should have. And so of course we have that here, but the next thing, since it's a balanced ship, at least the very minimum, the smallest version would have 2 weapons, would have shield, sensor and doors, and then some empty rooms depending on whether I have space or not. And so transporter will be an external attachment, and the whole point is that it's balanced. Now the weakness is that kind of needs upgrades. So here, as you can see, you have 2 weapons. The colored ones, by the way, are areas where the player or crew members can walk in. So you see the tiles here, they can walk in here. And those that are dark gray are cosmetics, the cosmetic equivalent of that room, kind of like where you put the 3D models. So in that case, here we have the first weapon. So we have the weapon control room for weapon, and then we have weapon 1. Weapon 2, cosmetic, weapon 2. And you can see here we have the reactor and its counterpart, the cockpit and its counterpart. We also need the shield. This is the counterpart. I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory. In this case, there'll be 2 spots where the transporter can dock. I had to adjust it because earlier it was horizontal, but now there's also a door in this spot so that it's accessible for the transporter. Everything should be accessible. You have your sensor and doors, as well as 2 empty rooms. Next, medium ship. What I've extended here is I've added 2 more rooms, and as well as another weapon, in here. So added that. When we're looking in here, it also follows these rules. So the cloaking, we can see here, can also be replaced with drones if we want, like this. Drones. But that's only optional. Maybe the player can choose it, maybe not. But I'm gonna leave it as cloaking. So everything's been followed here. And this is the equivalent. You can take a look at it if you want. Then for the maxed room, we'll have 4 weapons, doors, cloaking, drones, hacking. And here's how it looks. There's also 4 places you can dock your ship. Here is the additional, the additional 2 more weapons. Weapon 3, and weapon 4. Here we have, these two are the same empty rooms as before. The weapon room from before, the medium, turned into a drone room. I've added 2 more rooms here, hacking, and 1 empty room here. So as you can see, this is the maximum it can go for a balanced ship. And yeah, it's up to the player whether they want to add more systems here in the empty slots. There's about 4. And you can make it more specialized if you want. So in order to set this all up, yeah, I had to take a look at a lot of examples from other games. I had to figure out, okay, where should I place these rooms with space for its cosmetic counterpart and make it look symmetrical, kind of like this. So it really does look like an upgrade of its previous version. And I'm a bit proud of this. It's pretty nice. But let me know, of course, any critiques or possible stuff I've missed. I think I've added doors to everything here. And yeah, I'll be continuing with the rest. If this ship layout is fine and kind of the philosophy of making it is fine, then I can move on to the rest of these factions with their own selling points for the battle. And then in that case, I also changed the naming, so it's not engine anymore, it's reactor, and it's cockpit now. So another thing in the notes here is that we wanted to make sure that the Steam Deck works well on games that are made from Unreal Engine 5. At first, I took a look at this website called ProtonDB. I just looked at the games that they had here in the deck verified games, verified playable. I took a look at some of them, and stuff I found are Unreal Engine 3 or Unreal Engine 4, as you can see from these games. You can make sure of that by typing, let's say, for example, Biomutant game engine. There, you see some sources here saying it's Unreal Engine 4 or Outlast 2. I double checked all those. Unreal Engine 3. I was a bit worried, but then I started looking at a website from IGN for Unreal Engine 5 games. So I took a look at some of them. Things like Dark and Darker, The Finals. And I checked, are they in here? The Finals, for example. And you have this kind of ranking for them saying whether or not it runs well. So if it's gold, it runs after a few tweaks. If it's platinum, it runs great, perfectly out of the box. So I did that for some games. I did it for Black Myth Wukong, which is, all of these are Unreal Engine 5, by the way. So most of them are gold. Some are platinum, which means it runs perfectly. And then only one of them I found so far is Final Fantasy Rebirth, which is silver, which means it's some issues, but it's generally playable. So you can take a look at yourself of other games. Just look in for games that are Unreal Engine 5, then search it here to tell you that, hey, it's pretty good from these reviews you see. But generally, it seems that if the game is optimized well, it's fine. Even big games like Black Myth Wukong or Tekken 8. They run well on the Steam Deck. And yeah, for my next steps, we're going to be creating the rest of the layouts here if everything's fine. And maybe check out some artists for the game. That should be it for my update video. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.